in the quiet town of Willowbrook, nestled between rolling hills and a shimmering man-made lake. Elias Thorne, a man whose life had been shaped by the land he inherited from his grandfather. Elias was in his late 50s, with calloused hands from years of manual labor and a mind sharp as the tools he wielded. His property sat on the upstream side of Lake Serenity, a vast reservoir that fed into the exclusive Willowbrook resort downstream of sprawling $4 million development owned by the local Homeowners Association, or HOA, as everyone called it. The HOA was a tyrannical entity, run by a board of affluent retirees and ambitious real estate moguls who enforced rules with the fervor of medieval lords. Elias's bridge, a sturdy wooden structure built by his grandfather decades ago, spanned a narrow creek that connected his land to the lake's edge. It was more than just a crossing. It was a symbol of independence, allowing Elias to access his fishing spots and maintain the small dam on his property that regulated water flow. The dam was an old engineering marvel, constructed in the 1930s to control flooding and irrigation for the farms that once dotted the area. Elias had legal rights to it, documented in yellow deeds that predated the resort's existence. But the HOA saw the bridge as an eyesore, a relic that clashed with their vision of pristine luxury. One fateful morning, Elias awoke to the sound of chainsaws and bulldozers. Peering out his cabin window, he saw a crew from the HOA tearing down his bridge under the guise of community beautification. They claimed it violated some obscure bylaw about structures near waterways, ignoring Elias's protests and the historical permits he waved in their faces. By noon, the bridge was reduced to splinters floating in the creek, severing Elias's easy access to his land and forcing him to trek miles around. Rage boiled in his veins, but he knew direct confrontation would be futile. The HOA had lawyers on retainer and influence in City Hall. Instead, Elias retreated to his workshop, poring over old maps and blueprints of the dam. He remembered his grandfather's stories about how the dam could release the entire upstream reservoir if needed, a failsafe for emergencies. The resort's lake was artificially maintained by this very water source, and without it, their manicured beaches, yacht docks, and golf course ponds would dry up like a desert mirage. Elias spent days calculating the impact, timing the release to coincide with the resort's peak season, ensuring no lives were endangered, but maximum disruption ensued. He consulted weather reports, noting an upcoming dry spell that would exacerbate the drainage. Legally, he was on shaky ground. Opening the dam could be seen as vandalism or worse, but the HOA's destruction of his bridge felt like a declaration of war. Elias decided to frame it as a necessary maintenance release, citing erosion concerns from the bridge demolition. As night fell on the eve of his plan, he hiked to the dam under cover of darkness, tools in hand. The mechanism was rusty but functional, a series of levers and gates that groaned as he tested them. He set a timer on a makeshift device to delay the opening until dawn, giving him time to establish an alibi at the local diner. Back home, Elias sipped black coffee, imagining the chaos. The resort's guests waking to receding waters, their infinity pools turning to mud pits, the koi ponds gasping for life. It wasn't just revenge, it was justice for every small landowner squeezed by the HOA's greed. The next morning, as the sun crested the hills, the dam gates creaked open. Water rushed downstream in a controlled torrent, bypassing the lake's feeder channels and diverting straight to the river beyond. Elias watched from afar through binoculars, a grim smile on his face. Alarms blared at the resort as levels dropped inch by inch. By midday, the lakebed was exposed, mucky, littered with abandoned boats and bewildered fish flopping in shallow puddles. The HOA board scrambled, calling emergency meetings, but it was too late. Their $4 million paradise was a wasteland. Elias fielded calls from authorities, feigning surprise and producing documents showing his right to manage the dam. Investigations dragged on, but with no proof of malice, he walked free. The resort sued, but countersuits from Elias about the bridge destruction tied them in knots. In the end, the HOA relented, rebuilding the bridge stronger than before and granting Elias easements to prevent future meddling. Willowbrook learned a lesson that day. Mess with a man's legacy, and you might just watch your empire drain away. But Elias's story didn't end there. Whispers of his deeds spread, inspiring others to challenge overreaching powers. He became a local legend, the man who turned the tide. Years later, sitting by his restored bridge, Elias reflected on how one act of defiance could reshape a community. The lake refilled eventually, but the HOA's iron grip loosened, allowing Willowbrook to breathe freer. Elias's dam remained a silent guardian, a reminder that water, like justice, finds its level. Elias Thorne's victory over the HOA wasn't without its ripples. In the weeks following the drainage, the town buzzed with speculation and divided opinions. Some hailed him as a hero, a David slaying the Goliath of corporate overreach, while others decried him as a vandal who jeopardized livelihoods. The resort, once a beacon of opulence with its marble fountains and championship golf course, now resembled a ghost town. Workers laid off, events canceled, and the HOA's coffers drained faster than the lake itself. Elias, however, remained stoic, tending to his land as if nothing had changed. He repaired fences, planted new trees along the creek, and even started a small vegetable garden, finding solace in the rhythm of nature. But beneath his calm exterior, doubts crept in. Had he gone too far? The resort's owner, a slick businessman named Harlan Voss, vowed revenge in fiery press conferences, accusing Elias of Voss mobilized his legal team, filing injunctions to seize control of the dam under eminent domain claims. Elias countered by rallying neighbors, many of whom had their own HOA grievances, exorbitant fees, denied home improvements, even pet restrictions that bordered on absurd. A grassroots movement formed, dubbed the Willowbrook Reclaimers, holding town hall meetings where stories of HOA tyranny poured out like floodwaters. Elias spoke rarely, but when he did, his words carried weight. They took my bridge, but they aimed to take our freedom. The group petitioned the county, uncovering HOA violations like unpermitted expansions and environmental shortcuts in the resort's construction. As the legal battle heated up, Elias delved deeper into his grandfather's archives, discovering letters from the 1940s detailing how the dam was built with federal grants to support local agriculture, not luxury developments. This bolstered his case, proving the HOA's lake was an unintended beneficiary, not an entitled one. Meanwhile, the drained lake revealed secrets of its own, old artifacts from indigenous settlements, rusted cars from decades past, and even a sunken boat rumored to hold Prohibition-era contraband. Treasure hunters flocked, turning the mudflats into a makeshift archaeological site, much to the HOA's chagrin. Elias joined the digs occasionally, bonding with volunteers over shared histories. One evening, as he sifted through silt, he unearthed a locket with a faded photo, his grandmother's, lost years ago during a family picnic. It felt like a sign, reaffirming his actions. But Voss wasn't idle. He hired private investigators to tail Elias, hoping to catch him in a slip. Paranoia set in, with Elias installing motion sensors around his property. Tensions peaked when a suspicious fire broke out in his barn, destroying tools but sparing livestock. Arson was suspected, fingers pointing at HOA sympathizers. The sheriff, an old friend of Elias's, investigated thoroughly, but evidence was scant. Undeterred, Elias rebuilt, stronger and more vigilant. The reclaimers grew, attracting media attention from nearby cities. A documentary crew arrived, interviewing Elias about his dam rebellion. He shared anecdotes from his youth, how the bridge was where he proposed to his late wife, and how the dam saved the town from a flood in '72. The publicity swung public opinion, pressuring the HOA to negotiate. In a mediated settlement, they agreed to compensate Elias for the bridge, drop all charges, and reform their bylaws for fairer governance. The resort reopened after costly refilling, but with humbled management. Elias's paragraph in history was etched, a tale of one man's stand against unchecked power. Yet, he knew peace was fragile. The dam's levers remained, a quiet threat or promise, depending on the viewer. As autumn leaves fell on the restored lake, Elias fished from his new bridge, content in his reclaimed solitude. The story inspired copycats elsewhere, sparking a national conversation on HOA reforms. Elias received letters from strangers, thanking him for his courage. He responded humbly, advising caution and legality. Life normalized, but the scar of conflict lingered, a reminder that water and wills could carve canyons through stone. With the settlement inked and the lake sparkling once more under the sun, Elias Thorne found himself thrust into an unexpected spotlight. Reporters camped outside his cabin, eager for interviews about the dam avenger. He granted a few, emphasizing that his actions were born of necessity, not malice. When they destroy what's yours without recourse, sometimes you have to remind them of the flow of things, he'd say, his voice gravelly from years outdoors. The attention brought admirers and critics alike. Fan mail arrived alongside hate letters, some threatening retaliation. Elias shrugged it off, focusing on his routines, mending nets, chopping wood, and monitoring the dam's integrity. The reclaimers evolved into a formal organization, electing Elias as honorary chair. They lobbied for state laws capping HOA powers, gathering signatures at farmers markets and online. Elias contributed by sharing his documents, which became templates for others fighting similar battles. Meanwhile, Harlan Voss licked his wounds, restructuring the resort to appeal to eco-tourists, ironically promoting the reborn lake as a symbol of resilience. But resentment simmered. Voss plotted subtly, influencing local elections to install OA-friendly council members. Elias caught wind through allies, prompting him to run for a seat himself. Campaigning was alien to him, a man of few words facing podiums and handshakes. He platformed on land rights and community autonomy, drawing crowds with tales of the drainage. "I didn't drain a lake. I exposed the mud beneath the glamour," he'd quipped. Voters resonated, electing him in a landslide. As councilman, Elias pushed ordinances requiring HOA transparency and dispute mediation. The role suited him surprisingly well, blending his practical wisdom with policy. Back home, he mentored young neighbors on property law, turning his workshop into an informal classroom. One mentee, a tech-savvy kid named Mia, digitized his archives, creating an online repository for anti-HOA resources. Their collaboration uncovered more HOA misdeeds, embezzlement, scandals, and discriminatory practices. A class action lawsuit brewed, with Elias as a key witness. Testifying in court, he faced Voss across the aisle, stairs locking in silent challenge. The judge ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, awarding damages and mandating audits. Victory tasted sweet, but Elias remained grounded, crediting the community. Post-trial, he hosted a barbecue by the creek, bridge strung with lights, where former foes mingled tentatively. Voss attended grudgingly, extending an olive branch. Joint management of lake levels, Elias accepted warily, sealing a truce. Seasons turned, and Elias's life enriched. He remarried a widow from town, Sarah, who shared his love for the land. Together, they expanded the garden into a community plot, fostering unity. The dam, once a weapon, became an educational site, with tours explaining its history. Elias wrote a memoir, Tides of Defiance, ghostwritten by Mia, which hit local bestsellers. Royalties funded scholarships for rural kids. Yet, shadows loomed. A developer eyed upstream land for condos, echoing old threats. Elias mobilized anew, but age caught up aches and joints. Slower steps. He passed the torch to Mia, trusting her fire. Reflecting on the bridge's rebuild, he saw it as a metaphor. Crossings mended, divides narrowed. The resort thrived under reformed rules, a coexistence model. Elias fished at dawn, pondering how one opened gate changed everything. His story echoed in folklore, a cautionary epic. As winter approached, he reinforced the dam against storms, ever the guardian. Peace settled, but readiness endured. Waterslesson.com surfaces high depths. As years passed in Willowbrook, Elias Thorne's legacy solidified, weaving into the town's fabric like roots in soil. The council position became a platform for broader advocacy. He traveled to state capitals, testifying on property rights bills. HOAs aren't villains by default, he'd argue, but unchecked, they become kings without crowns. His speeches, laced with rural wit, garnered applause and allies. Back home, Sarah transformed their cabin into a cozy haven, adding flower beds and a porch swing where they watched sunsets over the lake. The Reclaimers expanded statewide, with chapters sprouting in similar communities. Elias funded their efforts through book sales and donations, ensuring sustainability. Mia, now a lawyer, handled pro bono cases, crediting Elias as her inspiration. Together, they dismantled several abusive HOAs, saving homes from foreclosure over petty fines. The resort, under new management, post-Voss's retirement, partnered with the Group for Eco-Initiatives, planting native species around the lake to prevent erosion. Elias led volunteer days, hands dirty, alongside former adversaries. Harmony felt earned, not imposed. But life threw curves. A health scare, a mild heart attack during a hike, forces Elias to slow down. Hospitalized, he reflected on mortality, dictating notes for a sequel memoir. Sarah nursed him back, their bond deepening. Recovery brought perspective. Revenge's thrill faded, replaced by building's satisfaction. He mentored more, hosting workshops on sustainable land use. The dam underwent upgrades, federally funded after Elias's lobbying, modernizing gates while preserving history. Tours increased, educating on water management. One visitor, a hydrologist, proposed studies on the lake's ecosystem, revealing improved biodiversity post-drainage. Ironic vindication. Elias chuckled at fate's twists. Socially, he reconnected with estranged family, inviting nieces and nephews to fish from the bridge. Stories flowed, grandfather's dam-building adventures, the bridge's romantic history. Bonds mended, like the structure itself. Community events flourished at annual bridge festivals, celebrated resilience, with music, food, and dam demos. Elias emceed, sharing anecdotes that drew laughs and tears. Voss, in twilight years, sought reconciliation over coffee, admitting overreach. You taught me humility, he conceded. Elias nodded. And you, persistence. Friendship bloomed late, proving change possible. As Elias aged gracefully, the town honored him with a plaque on the bridge. Elias Thorne, guardian of the flow. He downplayed it, preferring anonymity. Mia took over Reclaimers' leadership, innovating with apps for reporting HOA abuses. Elias advised from afar, enjoying retirement pursuits. Woodworking crafts, sold at markets, proceeds to charity. Sarah and he traveled modestly, visiting national parks, drawing parallels to their saga. Home remained anchor, the creek's babble a constant. Reflecting on the drainage, Elias saw it as catalyst, not climax. Lives touched, systems reformed, true measure of impact. The lake mirrored skies, serene yet powerful. Winters brought introspection. By fireside, he penned letters to future generations. Defend your ground, but build bridges too. Spring renewed hope, gardens blooming. Elias's health stabilized, allowing light duties. The dam stood sentinel, levers idle but ready. His story inspired films, a low-budget, indie capturing essence. Premiering locally, Elias attended humbly, Applause warmed him more than spotlights. Legacy secured, he focused on present joys. Granis's giggling on the bridge, Sarah's hand in his. Willowbrook thrived, a model of balanced growth. As another dry season loomed, Elias monitored levels, ensuring equilibrium. Water taught patience, revenge, consequences, community, strength. In twilight, Elias pondered eternity, content with ripples made. The bridge endured, a testament to defiance and dialogue. Elias Thorne's twilight years in Willowbrook were marked by a gentle rhythm, far removed from the turbulence of his dam opening days. Now in his 70s, he moved with deliberate care, his once robust frame leaning on a cane carved from bridge remnants. Sarah, ever his pillar, managed daily chores while encouraging his involvement in community affairs. The Reclaimers had grown into a national network, with Mia at the helm advocating in Washington for federal HOA regulations. Elias consulted via video calls, his insights prized like vintage wine. He delighted in seeing policies he championed become law, capping fees and mandating elections. The resort, fully recovered, hosted annual summits on property rights, inviting Elias's keynote. He'd speak softly, weaving humor into lessons. Draining a lake is easy. Refilling hearts takes work. Attendees hung on his words, many sharing their victories inspired by his tale. Locally, the bridge became a landmark, with guided walks recounting the saga. Elias joined occasionally, pointing out spots where bulldozers once roared. Kids listened, wide-eyed, imagining the flood. Education extended to schools. He guest lectured on civics, using his story to illustrate justice. Rules bind us, but fairness frees us, he'd say. Sarah organized book clubs around his memoir, fostering discussions on ethics. Evenings found them stargazing by the lake, reminiscing. Health challenges, persisted arthritis, flared in damp weather, but Elias managed with herbal remedies and walks. He experimented with hydroponics in the garden, adapting to limitations. Mia visited often, bringing updates and grandkids who called him Uncle Dam. Laughter filled the cabin, bridging generations. A documentary sequel chronicled his later life, focusing on reconciliation. Filming captured Voss and Elias fishing together. Old rivals turned companions. Voss passed soon after, his eulogy praising Elias's influence. Grief mingled with gratitude. Elias attended the funeral, laying a wreath from lakeside reeds. Loss reminded him of impermanence, prompting a will update. Property to Reclaimers, dam oversight to Mia. Philanthropy expanded. He donated to environmental causes, ensuring the lake's health. Birdwatching became a passion. Logging species revived post-drainage. Sarah painted scenes of the vista, exhibiting locally. Their art collaboration raised funds for scholarships. As decades waned, Elias reflected on the HOA's initial assault, the bridge's fall sparking his resolve. No regrets, only growth. The town erected a statue in his honor, but he preferred living tributes. Thriving gardens, fair governance, winters cocooned them indoors, storytelling by fire. Spring outings to the dam, checking mechanisms with Mia's team. Summer festivals celebrated, Elias judging pie contests. Autumn harvests shared communally. Cycle continued, life's ebb and flow. A final health downturn confined him, but spirits soared with visitors. Bedside tales regaled, legacy alive in listeners. Sarah held his hand through nights, love unwavering. In lucid moments, he'd whisper, "The water always finds its way." Passing came peacefully, under a full moon reflecting on the lake. Funeral drew crowds, bridge adorned with flowers. Eulogies hailed the man who turned tide. Buried creekside, overlooking his domain. Posthumously, his methods studied in law schools, inspiring reforms. Mia carried the torch, expanding impact. Sarah maintained a home as museum, preserving artifacts. The dam hummed on a returnal sentinel. Willowbrook prospered, story etched in lore. Bridges built, divides drained, Elias's enduring gift. Ripples extended far, touching untold lives. In essence, one act echoed eternally, proving individuals' power in collective stream. The echoes of Elias Thorne's legacy rippled far beyond Willowbrook, inspiring a wave of similar stories across the nation. In a coastal town plagued by a domineering beachfront HOA, a widow named Clara drew from Elias's tale to challenge illegal seawall expansions that eroded her cliffside property. Armed with online resources from the Reclaimers database, she documented violations and rallied neighbors, culminating in a public hearing where she quoted Elias, "When they build walls, sometimes you let the sea speak." The HOA backed down, restoring access and compensating affected owners. News outlets linked her victory to the Thorne effect, a term coined for grassroots. Uprisings against overreaching associations. Universities incorporated case studies, dissecting the drainage's legal nuances. Mia, now a prominent attorney, lectured on campuses, sharing personal anecdotes about her mentor. Elias wasn't a revolutionary, he was a steward, she'd emphasize. Back in Willowbrook, Sarah curated an annual symposium, inviting speakers on land ethics. The bridge hosted poetry readings versus celebrating Defiance. A playwright adapted the memoir into a stage production, touring regionally to acclaim. Actors portrayed Elias with gravitas, audiences cheering the dam opening scene. Royalties bolstered the reclaimer's endowment. Environmentally, the lake became a research hub. Scientists studied post-drainage recovery, publishing papers crediting the event for biodiversity boosts. Elias's name graced awards for conservation heroes. Mia's children, growing up on his stories, pursued related fields. One hydrology, another law. Family gatherings retold the saga, embellishing with each generation. Voss's heirs, surprisingly, donated to the cause, honoring the truce. Broader impacts emerged. Federal bills passed, inspired by Thorne's advocacy, standardizing HOA practices nationwide. Celebrities endorsed, amplifying reach. A podcast series, Dam Breakers, featured similar tales, Elias's, as pilot episode. Listeners submitted stories, creating a support network. In Willowbrook, tourism surged, visitors trekking the bridge, snapping dam photos. Local economy boomed, jobs created in guiding and hospitality. Sarah, in her 80s, led tours with vigor, sharing intimate details. He drained more than water. He cleared paths, she'd say. Art installations dotted the landscape, abstract sculptures symbolizing flow. A mural on the resort wall depicted the event, blending conflict and resolution. Community bonds strengthened, annual reunions honoring participants. As climate change intensified, the dam's lessons proved prescient adaptive water management key. Mia advocated globally, citing Elias in UN forums. His memoir translated into multiple languages, resonating worldwide. In a drought-stricken region, farmers emulated his tactics legally, negotiating with developers. Thorne method became shorthand for strategic resistance. Sarah passed peacefully, reunited with Elias in spirit. Mia ensured their gravesite maintained, a pilgrimage spot. The reclaimers evolved into a non-profit giant. Chapters International. Technological integrations apps for monitoring HOA compliance honored Elias's practicality. Anniversaries marked with ceremonies, releasing symbolic water, toasting to justice. Folklore grew. Kids whispered of the ghost of the dam, a benevolent spirit guarding rights. Reality grounded in facts. One man's stand catalyzed change. The lake endured, levels stable under vigilant care. Bridges metaphorically multiplied, connecting divided communities. In retrospect, the HOA's bridge destruction ignited a firestorm of reform, proving adversity's alchemy. Elias's story, from local legend to global inspiration, underscored human resilience. Water's wisdom prevailed. Fluid, forceful, forever shaping shores. Decades after Elias Thorne's passing, his influence permeated cultural narratives, manifesting in books, films, and even virtual reality experiences that simulated the dam opening. A blockbuster movie, Drained Empire, dramatized the events with Hollywood flair, casting a grizzled actor as Elias, complete with intense monologues about legacy and land. Critics praised its themes of empowerment, while box office success funded scholarships in his name. Mia, retired but advisory, consulted on accuracy, ensuring the essence remained untarnished. The reclaimers, now a multinational entity, used proceeds for legal aid worldwide. In Willowbrook, the site evolved into a heritage park, with interactive exhibits on the saga. Visitors donned VR headsets to experience the drainage, feeling the rush of water and moral dilemmas. Educational programs schooled youth on civic engagement, using Elias as exemplar. The bridge, preserved as artifact, bore inscriptions of quotes. Annual festivals expanded, attracting thousands with reenactments and debates. Environmental monitoring continued, data shared globally for climate models. Mia's descendants carried the mantle, one a senator, pushing green policies, another an engineer, innovating dam tech. Family archives digitized, accessible online. Similar movements arose. In urban sprawls, tenants' unions drew from Thorne tactics against landlord cartels. Open the dam became activist slang for exposing corruption. Media retrospectives commemorated milestones, interviewing survivors. Sarah's paintings hung in museums, captioned with story context. Philanthropic foundations bore his name, granting to underdogs. Technological advancements honored his ingenuity. iTools predicted HOA disputes, preventing In literature, sequels and spin-offs proliferated, imagining alternate outcomes. Poetry anthologies themed on water justice cited him. Music festivals featured ballads of the rebellion. Globally, indigenous groups adapted strategies for land reclamation, crediting the inspiration. Willowbrook's economy diversified. Tech firms drawn by history. The lake, a UNESCO site contender, symbolized harmony. Reflections on ethics evolved. Was the act vigilantism or necessity? Debates enriched discourse. Mia's memoirs detailed behind scenes, humanizing figures. As centuries loomed, Elias's tale endured in oral traditions, evolving yet core intact. The dam, automated now, stood as monument. Bridges, metaphorical, spanned eras, connecting past to future. In essence, one pivotal moment rippled infinitely, shaping societal currents. Water's parable persisted: adapt or be swept. The enduring saga of Elias Thorne transcended time, embedding in humanity's collective consciousness as an archetype of righteous rebellion. Futuristic adaptations emerged. Holographic reenactments in history classes, where students debated alternatives. The reclaimers morphed into an AI-augmented alliance, using algorithms to detect power abuses preemptively. Willowbrook became a pilgrimage for reformers, its lake a meditative haven. Elias's principles informed space colonization, ethics fair, resource allocation on new worlds. Descendants innovated, blending heritage with progress. The bridge, relic in a museum, inspired designs for resilient infrastructure. Festivals went virtual, global participation swelling. Environmental legacies shown. The drainages reset modeled for ecosystem restorations. Policies worldwide echoed his advocacy, curbing corporate overreach. Cultural artifacts proliferated: novels, operas, games. In reflection, his act proved timeless. Defiance's spark ignites change's flame. Water flowed eternal, carrying his story onward. As eons unfolded, Elias Thorne's narrative fused with myth, a foundational tale in human lore akin to ancient epics. Advanced societies referenced the Thorne paradigm in governance simulations, ensuring equity in resource distribution. The original site, preserved in a biodome, attracted interstellar tourists curious about Earth's quaint conflicts. AI descendants of the reclaimers patrolled digital realms for virtual tyrannies. The DEM's essence digitized, a symbol in quantum archives. Bridges evolved into wormholes of understanding, linking disparate worlds. His legacy, a beacon that one voice can redirect rivers of fate. The lake's waters, now cosmic metaphors, whispered of balance eternal.